Right. Welcome, everyone. I hope the sound is okay. All right, great. I see someone shaking their head. All right. So we have 12 attendees online, I see. So let's give them a minute. While waiting for other people to join, I would like to let you know that this meeting is being recorded and it will be then shared in various channels because so many people will currently be unable to attend. There's a conflicting, there's another meeting that actually collides with this in terms of time. So we will share this afterwards. I will wait until another minute and then we will start. Okay, now it's time. All right, welcome everyone to this W3C Nordic Accessibility Community Group event. It's titled Accessibility Testing with WCAG-EM, No More Spreadsheets and Checklists. Presenter a bit about myself. I'm the co-founder of Accessibility Cloud, and I'm also doing the product management there. I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to human and computer interaction, a seasoned, so this is a polite term for old, product manager for web and mobile products, and a digital accessibility specialist. So what is WCAG-EM? I added this slide as a joke, and then I added this in its place because this will not be a presentation which you will fall asleep. There's a lot of entry-level presentations out there about the same topics over and over again. So, and obviously you can Google what is WCAG-EM on your own time and do your own research if you want to. But since you are here, we are assuming that you know the basics, so we will not go into the basic level. Instead, we will talk about more in-depth stuff about using WCAG-EM for doing accessibility tests and audits. And during the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to add that into chat. So I have a colleague who is taking care of questions, and I will also try to take a look at that as well. So participants, me from Accessibility Cloud, Umut Gültekin, and we have also Steven from Be Inclusive and Stefan from Mindscreen. They have their product name is CAAT. You might have heard of these three companies because they are, as far as I know, they are the only three companies who are investing into the WCAG-EM space. These companies, they are all vendors who are innovating in this small space with a methodology and format that could one day become the industry standard for doing manual audits. They each hold different approaches and they are all innovating from different angles. So we don't see that each other as competitors. And for this event, we came together. It's an industry first. And towards the end of the session, each company will take 10-minute sessions and explain what their product is about and how they use WCAG-EM methodology and its JSON format in cool ways. So WCAG-EM versus WCAG-EM report tool. WCAG-EM is a methodology of web accessibility testing. There are some steps involved with this: defining the scope, exploring the website, selecting a sample, auditing the sample, and reporting the findings. On the other hand, WCAG-EM report tool is an open source software which is offered by W3C. So here we have a small video recording of me going over different screens. So the first screen of WCAG-EM report tool is where you define the scope. It's Currently supporting WCAG 2.1 up to AAA conformance level. 2.2 will be supported sometime in the future. And second step where you add information about the website. Third step where you define your scope, test scope, different pages, and you can enter addresses, and you can also write, you can treat this as a screen name, and you can use this for mobile audits as well if you want to. But this is basically the URLs of the pages and the names of the pages. What would you like to call them? And in the fourth step, we have the actual audit editor. So here I am selecting WCAG 111 and selecting the outcome as failed, and then edit the text as an observation that says failed. So now I am doing the same thing for an individual page. So this means page 1 will failed, and the entire success criteria also failed. So that is what we did so far. And in here, in the report findings screen, you can add things like executive summary, more generic information. And as you can see, we added one failure in this entire test so far. And we also added one outcome for a failing page, which is called page 1. But WCAG-EM promotes a WCAG first approach, and that's not necessarily the same thing with web accessibility testing. Many experts and accessibility companies have their own set of test rules, and in most cases, many rules point to a single WCAG success criterion, or many rules point to multiple success criteria. This basic need of wanting to have more granular set of tests make WCAG only a baseline for manual accessibility tests. This also holds true for associating findings and rules with other guidelines and other standards such as EN 301549. As it is illustrated on the chart on the screen, in the left side, there is WCAG-EM. It's basically mainly driven by WCAG's principles, guidelines, success criteria, and then here comes findings and pages. So you basically do your test against WCAG, and it ends there. But on the other hand, many prefer doing their testing with their own test rules. So one test rule can be associated with multiple rules. So for example, rule A, rule B, rule C, they could all be connected to a single success criterion. And then you are basically testing against those, because you don't have to put, maybe you don't have to put every single kind of finding about one single success criterion under one entry. Maybe you will have, instead of just having 50 success criteria, maybe you want to have 150 rules to test individual aspects of every single success criterion. And then when you have these custom test rules, they can be connected to WCAG, they can be connected to EN 301549, Section 508, VITV, and many other guidelines by using WCAG as the unifying identifier. So if you have your custom test rules, then you can have findings and you can associate those pages or screens with those findings against your custom test rules. But despite all of this, there's some shortcomings of WCAG-EM and the report tool, such as not supporting custom rules, not supporting EN 301549 and other guidelines and standards, not offering an easy-to-use auditing experience. You get a simple text box and nothing else. Not focusing on what needs to be fixed first, because you have to go through the success criteria instead of what needs to be fixed. Not offering capability of having multiple auditors, testers. So if you have 5 people or 2 people trying to work on the same audit, that's kind of impossible. And not offering enough learning material. You are limited to WCAG, but the WCAG supports, that's already too much. But if you have custom rules, then suddenly you need to have custom learning material as well to be able to disseminate that information within your team. And not saving data. WCAG-EM report tool is a client-based tool. Everything is in your computer's memory until it is exported. And not having a bug-free nature. It's an open source tool. It has known bugs, and maintenance is a bit slow. So, I mean, you can still use it if you want to, but in at least my opinion, it's a bit risky to use it for any real production grade work. But we saw the potential in WCAG-EM. So in Accessibility Cloud, before we decided a format and methodology to invest in to do manual tests, so offer features for doing manual tests, We talked about a lot of customers and partners from various sizes and sectors, ranging between government institutions from various European countries, monitoring bodies from various countries, enterprises with footprint in multiple geographies, accessibility companies, web development agencies. And we found out that WCAG-EM format has traction. Despite the shortcomings, WCAG-EM format was the only available portable manual test and audit format out there that many organizations had already adopted it to do cool things such as building repositories of conformance, building dashboards of compliance, archiving them for future comparisons about a site's conformance, sending audits back and forth across departments or countries, treating WCAG-EM tests as a part of a bigger process, and so much more. And JSON LD as a portable audit with a mapping to WCAG. So in here we have a file icon that says JSON on top, and then it has a speech bubble. It says, hey, I'm an accessibility audit. So you can basically have an audit fitting inside of a single file, and that's the beauty of it. Compared to doing audits on checklists, spreadsheets, PowerPoint, or pages on a CMS as web content, having a complete audit on a single file, which you can import, work on, and then export, is revolutionary, and it opens the door to a lot of possibilities. So what can you do with this? You can extend the capabilities of your test platform by having WCAG as the unifying identifier across guidelines and standards. For example, Chapter 9 of EN 301549 is based on WCAG, so 9111 is actually 111. So you can start orchestrating and managing the relationship between tests. You can convert audits between different guidelines, such as Section 508. So you can start a Section 508 audit, and you can turn that into an EN 301549 and turn that into WCAG and back again. Because in the end, most of these success criteria that you are testing will be associated with WCAG, so you will be able to orchestrate these changes. And you can easily keep versions of these audits and so many more benefits. So let's see some WCAG-EM innovation. 10-minute sessions start, and each product with a focus on WCAG-EM related innovations, and this is ordered by the company name. So Accessibility Cloud goes first. And with this, for this section, we have all pre-recorded videos so that we can ensure that we all stay within the 10-minute limit. And I would like to request a note from Steve because he is currently in my screen. So if you can hear the audio without any problems, please note, so we will continue. We are under the Accessibility Cloud interface, and we are looking at the English version of Wikipedia, and the page is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So that's that section of Wikipedia. This is the site dashboard, and as you can see, in every single page that is added to Accessibility Cloud, there's a widget that says a manual test is required to display any kind of compliance information. So these are errors that has been found in the past, and then over time monitoring results that determine non-compliancy. But in order to talk about accessibility compliancy, we need to talk about manual tests first. So we go to the manual tests menu. In here, there is basically two ways to start a new manual test. One, you can start from scratch, and the second, you can start from findings. So findings is another menu item. It's a concept that you can think of like an accessibility bug. You can create a bug, you can describe it in your words, own words, you can take a screenshot, and you can even write a solution suggestion. All of those will be imported into your audit if you choose this button. And there's also the possibility of choosing problems and their solution suggestions from snippets. So you can also use that if you want to. But for today, we will use the new test empty button to start a new test from scratch, and we will see how that works like. When we press the button, the manual test editor comes in, and we created this in a way that it would resemble the WCAG-EM report tool so that people who are using it can feel at home. but there is obviously lots of differences on top of this. So first thing we need to do in the first step is to choose a test type. WCAG 2.1 is by default selected because this site is being targeted in terms of the compliance target. It's targeting WCAG 2.1. If it was EN 301 for 549, it was going to, this one will be selected by default. Here we will choose a guideline, and after selecting a guideline, we can also choose additional criteria to include depending on what we are testing. So for example, if we are testing a mobile application, we need to choose that. If we are testing a website where the users have the ability to generate content, then we can choose that one, and so on. This switch enables the AAA conformance level, so this means there will be more success criteria will be brought into the test. So for now, we will go with this website and EN 301549 because this is the most common nowadays, especially at least in Europe. And the second step is basically identical to WCAG-EM report tools second step. The third step is also very much similar, but in here we are offering a smarter way to select the pages in the scope. So the home page is automatically selected and it's also automatically tested. So we see 169 occurrences of 6 different types of errors, all of which are listed here for your reference. Here you can choose a page from the site structure because Accessibility Cloud is aware of the site structure. Or you can just paste it here, or you can make it suggest you a page. And every time you press this button, it will suggest you a different page with different types of problems. So after you build yourself a nice set of pages when it comes to the test scope, now it's time to go into the test editor. If we go to the fourth step where we have our editor, you can see on the left side there are success criteria, all coming from the principles of WCAG, so we can quickly collapse them to show you what else is out there. And we also have Web Accessibility Directive here. If we also collapse that, you will notice that there is nothing else here that is specific to EN 301549 because EN 301549's web tests are coming from Chapter 9. So this means this is the reason why all of these have a 9 in front of them. But we can change that. We can go back to first step and we can, for example, include non-web software or maybe authoring tools so that we can see what happens. And then we can come back to the fourth step and we can do the same thing again to check out what is added. Now we have EN 301549 specific one rule, which is repair assistance, which is for authoring tools. So you basically have the ability to enable additional success criteria to make your test larger. So now we have a lot more because we enabled everything here. Okay, I will leave it like this. So we will go success criteria by success criteria to demonstrate you a few features. So the first one I clicked, there's an icon, light bulb icon next to it, that indicates that automatic tests already found some errors about this criteria. And this button will go and test all of those 10 pages which are in our scope. And if it finds any errors that's going to violate 91111, 9111, yes, and it will add all of the findings and it will select the correct pages and it will fill this section of the test for us automatically. We call this automatically assisted. So now I press the button and we can see that the home page has one problem and the second page, the third page. So all of these pages have at least one problem. And this one is now automatically, this success criteria is marked as automatically failed. And the next one, so we can, just for the sake of it, we can quickly mark some of them as passed, some of them are failed. And then we continue our test. And you will notice that there is another success criteria here that can be tested automatically. And there's also another switch that's another additional optional checkbox here, which we can check. So this one, if you check this one, it will go and it will test everything that can automatically be tested across all of those 10 pages, and it will fill the audit as much as it can. And you will have the ability to review all of the findings. So for example, I press that button. Now it marked 131 as failed. And if you scroll down, you can see that there are more success criteria in here that's marked as failed. So let's say that I don't want to fail this. This is a false positive. And in that case, I can get rid of this finding and I can make the entire test passed. And in here, you can also take notes. So for example, I marked this as passed because, and if you have a concern here, you can display that in detail. And this area basically supports Markdown, and you can write any Markdown formatting. And let's imagine that we also want to include a screenshot into this specific problem in this specific page. And if we click this area, and I will take a screenshot from my other monitor, and that screenshot will look like this. It's coming from something totally irrelevant and unrelated, but it will look like this. And you can also add an alt attribute to this, of course, you need to. And we scroll down and down and down. We continue the testing. And once we are happy with the results of this testing, now it comes to the point where we save this and take a look at what it looks like. So now we save this, and then get out of the editor view. Now you can see that we were supposed to test 84 success criteria, and we did test some of them. And we marked 3 of them as passed and 5 of them as failed. Most of these failures were done automatically. So you can see that all of what we did here, including the screenshot and everything, is presented as so here. And these are, again, coming from the WCAG-EM methodology, the pages tested. And in here you have the roles. So you can, for example, say, show me only the pages where a UI designer can do something. So these are mostly color contrast issues. So if you choose that, then you're only looking at one failure. So you can review it that way. In here, you also have the ability to export this as JSON, including the WCAG-EM compatible format, Excel, and HTML. We can actually go to the WCAG-EM report tool and take a look at this test, Wikipedia, and in here 27 failures, and there are some pages tested. So there's an audit here. So we can download this as a JSON and come back to Accessibility Cloud. In here, we can actually get rid of this test, or we can create a new one. So let's create a new one, select new test. After selecting the new test, we can import a JSON, and this will support the JSON file that we just downloaded from WCAG-EM report tool. And when we do that, it will go ahead and it will add all of the pages that are selected in that scope. It will go and mark all of the tests that are tested from that audit, and it will change the scope to whatever scope that was chosen in that audit. So if you hit save and close now we have 2 audits for this website. One that we kinda started, and the second one that you can see that we fully imported, that has many things, including the executive summary, failures, and the details of what failed. Thank you. Okay. So the next slide, hopefully, yes. There are some things that I forgot to mention in my video, so these are those. Partners of Accessibility Cloud and the users of the Enterprise Edition can test with their own custom rules and maintain them. So you can have rule A that belongs to rule set AA, and you can maintain them. And it's also possible to change the type of the test between the supported guidelines. So let's say that you have a customer that's US based, and you already have an audit for them for Section 508. You can quickly import that into an EN 31549 audit, and every single thing in terms of the success criteria will be mapped. And you don't start from scratch, you basically continue from your previous audit. Now it's Be Inclusive's turn. Steve, I am starting the video. All right.
Be Inclusive was purpose-built to help you define, track, and share digital accessibility audits. One of the biggest goals was to make this as friendly as possible to folks new to auditing, so a lot of care went into making the process intuitive, with a guided setup full of helpful tips and links to further documentation. Navigating to the dashboard, you'll see a list of projects, each with any number of associated audits. On my dashboard are 2 projects. One is called Be Inclusive, and that one has a completed audit report, and then another one called Demo Project with an open audit still in progress. And finally, there's a link to start another. Because of the 5-step WCAG-EM methodology, defining an understandable and repeatable framework for testing, I was able to take a lot of inspiration from it to structure this app. Be Inclusive projects are essentially the first 3 WCAG-EM steps. That's where we define the scope, explore the target site, and select representative target samples. Project audits cover WCAG-EM step 4, where we audit the target samples identified in step 3. And the resulting project audit report is the 5th and final step of WCAG-EM. That's where we report the findings. Let's see what the project creation workflow looks like. Clicking on the Start Another Project button leads me to an intro of the 3-step process, explaining that we start by defining the scope, then document specifics after exploring the target site, and then we finish by defining representative target samples. But rather than getting started with a brand new project, I'm going to show these steps in an existing one so you don't need to see me typing. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the Be Inclusive project and click Edit. This will lead us to step 1. Step 1 is where we define the scope. We set a project name, a conformance target, and we write out the scope of what we're auditing. I'm actually going to update this to WCAG 2.2, the latest standard. If I scroll down a little further, this is where we also identify the baseline support by itemizing user agents and the tools that we're going to be using to test. These fields have a type ahead for common examples. So for example, let me go ahead and add Opera. So if I type in OPER, great, Opera latest. You can also type in whatever you like in these fields. It's not limited to just the options in the dropdown. So I can type in something custom, and that would work just fine. Same goes for testing tools. So over here, I can go ahead and include, let's say, Accessibility Insights. Accessibility Insights. Great. You'll also notice that there are tooltips for nearly every field, providing some additional information. Let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is all about exploring the website, app, or digital workflow to understand its purpose and functionality. So here's where we would itemize the technologies that are being used, note any essential functionality, common relevant pages, and page types and templates. The content in these fields will be shown at the top of step 3. So moving on to step 3. As you can see, the fields that we entered in step 2 are at the top of step 3. When I scroll down, this is where we also define the target samples for evaluation. Target samples can be web pages, app screens, or even specific workflow steps, as you can see in these last 3 that I have here. WCAG-EM recommends at least 1 randomly selected sample for every 10 structured samples. This page provides some help text to surface that recommendation, though it's not a requirement to move forward. And with that, we can click on this, that looks good, let's review, to get a final review of the project. Here we'll see all the details of all 3 steps that we just completed. And if everything looks good, we can say, oh, this is good, let's save it. With those 3 steps completed, we now have a project ready for an audit. Moving on to audits, the heart and soul of Be Inclusive. This is where step 4 of the WCAG-EM methodology, called Audit the Selected Sample, is represented. Because this is where users spend a majority of their time, a lot of iteration and user experience testing went into this workflow to make it as simple as possible. I'm going to go ahead and open the audit in progress for Be Inclusive. When we arrive at the audit page, we'll have the ability to define a short name for the audit itself. To get started, we select a target sample from the dropdown. This dropdown includes all the target samples that we defined in step 3 of the guided setup of the project. So I'm going to click on the home page. And once a sample is selected, we'll get 2 new sections below. One is called Observations, and the other is called Success Criteria. The Observations section will display all observations for the target sample chosen above. There's also a button to start a new observation here, followed by a section that includes all global observations defined so far. Observations are the core element to every audit, each logging the details of one item you've observed during your evaluation. When we complete an observation, it'll be added to the bottom of this section for the target sample. You'll always be able to see the success criteria, user agent and browsing tool used, and the summary. Clicking anywhere in this overview will expand it to show the rest of the detail, and a set of actions you can take like editing and deleting. So let's go ahead and open this one up to see what the form looks like. Because there's potential for tracking a lot of information in an observation, the form is organized into 3 sections. The first section is called Categorization, and this is where we detail where the observation happened, the relevant success criteria, what we used to test, and whether the observation is happening on more than one target sample. The testing support of and using testing tool fields contain the list of browsers and tools that we define when creating the project. This categorization section is where the only two required fields, target sample and success criterion, are located. Everything else is optional in order to ensure it's flexible enough to accommodate your unique workflow. The detail section is where we add specifics about the observation, including a summary for reporting, long-form observation details in a WCAG, and any accompanying files, including images, video, and other documents. These files can also have a file name, alternative text, and description. Finally, the remediation section is where we can estimate the priority, the estimated effort of this observation, as well as document any recommended remediation steps and what teams may be responsible for remediating. To the right of observations is the success criteria section. This is where we can keep track of WCAG criteria tested for the target sample chosen. First, you'll see a series of filters. These allow you to filter criteria by status, like passed or untested, by WCAG level, or by WCAG version, so you can focus on a subset of criteria at a time. You'll notice that these filters are pre-configured on page load to include the WCAG version and level selected as the conformance target for this project. Below the filters are buttons for every WCAG success criteria, along with their current status. Clicking on a success criterion opens a panel where you can choose one of 6 statuses for it, either for this one target sample or for the entire sample. Setting a status for the entire sample is helpful in cases where you know the status applies everywhere. For example, a failure in the header navigation of a website would apply everywhere. Or if you know your site contains no audio or video content, you can mark all audio-visual criteria as not present. Utilizing these status options helps you keep track of progress and can surface useful stats in the audit report. At the bottom of the criterion panel is a button that shows more detail about it, including links directly to the Understanding and Techniques WAI documentation. Marking a criterion as failed will automatically open an observation form. When we're done with our audit and are ready to report the findings, we can use the Ready to Report Findings button at the bottom of the audit page. This will load a form with the last handful of fields that can be completed before moving on to the audit report. This audit findings form and the final report combine to encompass the 5th and final step of WCAG-EM for reporting findings. Here we can set a report title, document the evaluation commissioner and evaluators, and write out a full executive summary. All these details will be reflected in the final evaluation report. All our hard work culminates in this evaluation report. This report defaults to a private visibility that's only accessible by logged-in team members. But it can also be shared with stakeholders either with a passcode we can set or marking it as publicly viewable to anyone with the link. I'm going to go ahead and make this one publicly viewable. There are also a variety of export options available too, including specifically formatted CSV files for Jira, as well as Azure DevOps, or just a plain CSV export. The report itself is split up into 3 sections: summary, stats, and observation details. The summary is just that, a summary of the scope of the audit as defined in the project, and the details entered in the audit findings form like the commissioner and executive summary. The stats section is next and contains some charts and graphs that organize the audit data in different ways. The by impact chart illustrates the impact of remediating the observations in the audit. Generally, the higher the priority and lower the effort, the more impact it is assumed to have, which is helpful for prioritizing remediation efforts. Observations per page is a donut graph that shows the overall spread of observations per target sample. The success criteria section compiles the totals of success criteria status by principal as well as by target sample. Finally, the overall percentages section highlights the percentage of success criteria tested as well as the percentage that were marked as passed, based on the criteria for the conformance target. These percentages are based solely on the success criteria statuses set during the audit. The last section compiles all observations across all target samples, organized by target sample. While the report details are easily exportable to a CSV that you can then manipulate as you need, there's also a tabular format called the observation visualization table. This table lets you see the same observation data in a tabular format that can be filtered and sorted. For example, let's filter to all observations found with site improve. Great. And then sort by priority. The hope is that this visualization table can serve as another way to manipulate and understand the observation data, so the process of moving towards remediation is as smooth as possible. I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough. Go ahead and sign up for a free 7-day trial so you can give it a try yourself.
All right, thank you. So now we have CAAT. Stefan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you to be invited by you, and also thank you too for the great presentations. My video looks a little bit low quality in comparison, but it's not so important. So the most things are already said. So also CAAT is a tool which is based on the principle of the WCAG-EM methodology. The most important things are that you can test different catalogs, so different guidelines also, and you can create your own catalogs, which is very important that organizations are able to create their own catalogs how they need them. And we take into account the need of a single tester as well as of organizations who are testing with up to 20, 30 testers and working together at the same time. So we have collaborative testing at the same time. And yeah, one of the most important things is that we completely work issue orientated. So you can also work remark oriented, how we call it. So the classical notation by every success criteria. But the most important thing for us is to work issue orientated. So you have the ability to export and import the tickets, like it was also shown by the persons before me. So I think let's have a look at the video. First of all, we create a new test. Go here to create project, and then we type in the new name, and we select a test catalog. So for example, the WCAG 2.1 AA. At this point, I have to explain CAAT distinguishes between the underlying guidelines and the test catalogs. The underlying guidelines, for example, WCAG or N, are fixed integrated in the system. On top of them, we create and ship test catalogs. So test catalogs consists of so-called checkpoints. Each checkpoint can relate to one or more success criteria. And also multiple checkpoints can relate to one success criteria. In this way, very individual test catalogs can be created, which are then mapped to the assessment according to one or even multiple guidelines. Test catalogs can also be created by users themselves. We ship some of them, but you can create your own. So here, for example, you see the typical WCAG wherein these catalogs are exact the same like the guidelines. But you can create different catalogs and fit better to your needs. So if you, for example, split up one success criteria in multiple checkpoints, it is easier for tester to go through. And here you see also some German test catalogs for software testing or mobile testing. Let us just select the AN, for example. And you see that there are not many further settings on the creation page, because in the test catalog, also common settings are saved. This makes it for testers much easier to set up a new test. So let's just set up my name and we can start. Defining the sample is pretty much the same like in the WCAG-EM tool. You add a short name and a URL. Then you can add simple an image. Just use the snipping tool of your operating system and then copy and paste. I prepared it here, and then the image is directly inside. You can also use the select file option. After that, you have the opportunity to deselect some testable features. For example, barometrics, audio, video, two-way communication, and so on. Every feature represents a set of checkpoints. If you deselect the testable feature, one or more checkpoints are automatically set to not applicable. We will see the effect on the next step. So here now you see the list of all checkpoints. Behind every checkpoint you see these little boxes. This boxes represents the sample. Before I showed testable features, the feature, and now I will show you what happens with the sample. Here, for example, is the two-way communication. We deselected two-way communication because we know that there's no two-way communication in these samples. So all the samples are declared as inapplicable. And now you can simply filter and let you show just not tested. And then you filtered out 40 checkpoints. This is also a way to speed up your work. You have several more filters here. For example, you can filter by samples or you can filter by tags like color or keyboard. If you select, for example, keyboard, you have only the success criteria which deals with keyboard navigation. So you can test all this type of success criteria at once without continuously switching between different success criteria types. Let's just start. So for example, I just press here edit. Here we have the detail view of the checkpoint. And I see again here we have the sample. I can select the complete sample and say inapplicable, and then go to the next point, biometrics. I select only the last one and say also inapplicable or passed or failed. And so I can go through very easily. And after that, we just want to create an issue. CAAT primarily supports the issue-oriented notation. This type of notation is better for teams who have to work on problems. The classical notation, like it's supported in the WCAG-EM tool, is better for classical conformance reports. You have several meta information like the checkpoint to which it is related. You can also change them. Then the type of issue, if it's a violation, it's calculated in the report. If it's best practice, it's just a note, it's information. And then you can select severity. Also, this is configurable in the testing catalogs. It's serious in this case. And then you have the text, development, editorial, design. And then you have a simple rich text editor. We don't want that our testers write novels, but they need the ability to structure the text a little bit. So you have headings, for example, you can use the menu, but you can also use markdown notation if you like it. After you have finished your test, you can easily create a share link for your clients, specifying a password or even a validity period. Or you can export the report as comma separated file for imports in other tools like ticket systems. We have also a Jira flavored export. We have also a accessible EPUB export and a PDF export. And what is missing here now, we have also a JSON export for the WCAG-EM tool, which is not shown here because I started with an AN test and not with an WCAG test. And this was my fail in this demonstration. But it leads me to the problem that at the moment we don't know how to handle the AN success criteria when we export the report to the WCAG-EM tool. Furthermore, we are working on the import functionality of CAAT. We already have a import for automated test results, for example, from Xcore or from QualWeb. And in the next weeks, we also want to have an import from JSON files from the WCAG-EM tool.
Right. So more exploring for the products that you saw. Accessibility Cloud offers WCAG-EM-based manual testing in its basic plan for free for up to 5 pages. Be Inclusive has a 7-day free trial that is available without requiring a credit card. And CAAT offers online demo and also recurring online demos, I noticed that, and 15-day demo access. And some more information about our group. It's called W3C Nordic Accessibility Community Group, and it serves as an open forum to discuss challenges, network with accessibility professionals, and promote the importance of inclusive design in the Nordic countries. And we have the link to check it out and join if you want to. And now we have the questions and answers section, and this is the last section. So if you have any questions about any of our presenters, now we can take them. We have a question. So let's take them in order. Can you alter the look and feel of the eventual reports? So maybe we should take turns in answering. So I will go first. You can, with Accessibility Cloud, you can export with various formats, including an HTML that's not styled. So you can write your own style sheet and then keep exporting, and with your own importing just your style sheet with logo and everything, you can have a custom report. Steve?
Yeah, so in terms of the styling, there is a light and dark mode on the site. There isn't any additional options other than to be able to put your own logo at the top. That's the only customization that's available there. Otherwise, you can turn on and off specific sections. I've had multiple people just say that they don't like the stats section. They prefer to create their own stats. So that whole area can be removed from the report and exported.
Stefan?
Yeah, also in CAAT at the moment, you have the classical report, which is a linear document. You can only customize the brand logo and so on. But currently we are working on the next version of the report, which will have much more possibility to change the look and feel. So you have we call it the front page, where you can settle a background image and also a background color, and you will change the color of the headings and the text. There will not be too much possibility of customization, because we are not I don't know, we are not InDesign, we are a reporting tool, so there are just some variables you can change to fit it better to your look and feel of your organization.
All right. The second question, do all the tools themselves conform to WCAG 2.1 on levels A and single A and double A? Again, we can go in the same order. So I can unfortunately say Accessibility Cloud does not. We are so much behind in terms of being able to make our platform compliant. We have so many screens and so many features, and manual testing is just one of them. And we are also a very small team and a startup, and it's no excuse, and we are trying to get there. So we have a roadmap to fix everything that our users are bringing to our attention, and I will leave it at that. So the short answer is no, not yet. Steve?
Yeah, so I actually used Be Inclusive to test Be Inclusive. Is kind of my way of testing the application, but also testing the application. So last I checked, it did conform to level AA. There was only one thing that still needs to be fixed, and that's at the top of my list. You can't add alt text to a custom audit results logo just yet. That's the only thing that I found so far that needs to be addressed. But the same here. If there's anything that is noticed, I'm very keen to keep it updated to the latest standards.
Yes, and I also would like to add that I love your accessibility statement.
Oh, thanks.
In the footer. All right, Stefan?
Yeah, all the reports, PDFs, EPUBs are completely accessible, conforming WCAG 2.1, A and AA. And the backend itself, it's at the moment not conforming, but we have a lot of blind users working regularly with our tool, also daily, and we had to incorporate a lot of feedback. So we are not, we don't dare to say that we conform to WCAG because we have some situations which are not so perfect that we want to have it, but we know that it's already usable by a screen reader, which normally is the most hard thing to get done, and it works.
All right. The next question, it's actually a comment from Stefan, which worth mentioning. To specifying the problem, in Europe, many monitoring organizations use the WCAG-EM tool JSON as a standard. Every country creates their own variation of the JSON file to include EN success criteria, which is very true, which is what we did in Accessibility Cloud. So maybe we can actually sit down and together and think about how we can at least support each other's formats. Maybe not even go so far as to talk about standardization, but at least we can support each other's formats. The next one is, how is editing same fields by different users at the same time handled? So I will go first again. In Accessibility Cloud, there is a check in, check out mechanism. So if one person is editing a specific portion of an audit, it could be like a success criteria. So if you are typing something, it automatically logs for other people. So when they want to just add a new content or modify that in the same area, they cannot. And the moment you hit save, or if you are inactive, it auto saves as well. And they can take over after such a time passed or a save operation if they want to. Steve?
This is a great question. It's actually something that I just started working on recently because I got bit by that pretty recently too, where two people were editing the same target sample. So I'm working on something that'll let you know that somebody else is in the same target sample at the same time. I'm not sure if I'm going to build in anything that like prevents you from making changes, but at least let you know, hey, somebody else is looking at this right now.
Cool. Stefan?
Yeah, we have the same approach like Accessibility Cloud. So if you start editing an issue or something, it is blocked for other users. And if you finished or logged out for longer term, then it's reopened for editing.
Okay. Next question, can you see statistics over multiple tested sites, such as which are the most common failures, etc.? Again, I will go first. Accessibility Cloud has a very detailed reporting in terms of across multiple sites, so you can easily sort your sites even based on how many errors are detected and what kind of errors are in each site and what is the most common error, etc. So all of that exists already in Accessibility Cloud. Steve?
So I had set it up so that projects were kind of defined separately from the audits themselves. So you can have multiple audits for a project, and that kind of opens it up for things like this where we can compare things because it's a little bit easier to compare when you have the same like underlying setup. So right now, the only comparisons that we're able to do is if you start a second or third audit, you can see when you're starting an observation, if it is similar to something that has already been in there, you can review it or also just make a copy of it if the exact same issue exists. So that is what's in there now. I have grand ambitions to make the audit report also compare some of the data and do that in the charts, but that's not in there just yet. It's still in the roadmap.
Cool.
Okay. So my answer for that, in CAAT, there's no way at the moment to see the statistics over multiple tests. We have this request from our clients we are thinking about, but at the moment we have it not on the roadmap for the next month. We will see next year, perhaps in the middle of the next year, if multiple people are asking for this feature, we rate it higher and we will see if we can do something like that.
All right. The next one is a comment. It's a follow-up comment. Thank you for the honest answer. We have some people with disabilities doing the audits, so it's important for us to give them an accessible tool, which is very true. We are all striving to support an accessible interface ourselves as well. The next one, I noticed that CAAT does have export for Jira. Will the tools you have shown have a more general interface to be used for issue trackers like Jira and those in GitHub, GitLab, etc.? Again, I will go first. We don't have any intention to turn Accessibility Cloud into a bug tracker or anything like that. And in our roadmap, we are actually currently working on what I'm about to tell you. So there will be a way of so there is a concept called findings in Accessibility Cloud. It's like a bug, and the feature will allow you to send that finding into Azure DevOps, GitHub, and Jira soon, before the year is out. But we will not have something like a Kanban board or anything like that. That's not in our plans in the immediate term. Steve?
Pretty similar. That is where I drew the line, because if we kept going further in, it just gets more and more complicated. So there is export options for plain CSV. There's an option for Jira and one for Azure DevOps. I haven't put one in for GitHub, but I noticed that the one for Jira is actually not too bad when I imported into GitHub. This was a long time ago though, so I probably have to double check that.
Also from my side, we don't want to become a ticket system. What we are thinking about to create some small ticket system functionality for teams who don't use a ticket system. So you can check the issues if they are fixed by the team, or the team itself can say, I fixed it, but not a comment functionality, not a workflow or something like that. It's just a simple checklists that you can give back the feedback that this is solved. This is the only idea we had at the moment.
Okay. So the last question, unless there's another one that pops up while we are answering this, and it's only for Accessibility Cloud. Do accessibility issues in Accessibility Cloud that are detected automatically and added to the report also include the screenshots automatically? And the answer is no. The reason for that, it's because in Accessibility Cloud, usually the way that the platform is used, you add a website. And when you add a website, it usually has thousands of pages. And in those thousands of pages, there's tens of thousands of occurrences of many, many errors. So in order for us to be able to automatically add all of the screenshots of all of the errors, that would require us to take individual screenshots of each error, and that will be just too heavy and too slow, and probably like an overkill, because we don't know if people are just really interested in seeing the screenshots of those errors, because there is the highlighting ability that loads the site and allows you to highlight the errors. So we don't take those screenshots, therefore we cannot add them in here. But it's a good idea. Yeah, and we need a bunch of more new servers. Yes, correct. All right, that was all of the questions, and we would like to thank you for attending our event, and we are hoping to see you in our all respective tools trial versions. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks. Have a nice day.